Over the last couple of months, across two similar features, we've taken a look at the way some of gaming's most iconic characters have evolved throughout their lifetimes from a visual perspective. From minor iterative changes to complete reinventions to somewhere in between, we've seen examples of pretty much everything. And here we'll be looking at 5 more video game characters as we chart their visual evolution through the ages. So let's begin with the character that is perhaps synonymous with the very concept of video games more than any other. Mario, Super Mario. Mario has been at the top of the gaming pantheon for as long as gaming as we know it today has existed, and because of it, or maybe vice versa, his design has become iconic. The red hat, the bushy mustache, the blue overalls. These are all features that have collectively become immediately recognizable even to someone who isn't too ingrained in video games. It makes sense then that Nintendo have largely kept Mario's design the same, or at least the most important features. Well, for the most part. For his very first outing in Donkey Kong on arcade machines, Mario sported his iconic attire, but things changed after that for a while. On the NES, Super Mario Bros. Was restricted by the limited number of colors the console could display, so everything from his clothes to his overalls to his hat to even his hair was all basically just different shades of the same color. In fact, it wasn't until Super Mario World on the SNES that we saw him donning the blue overalls for a look that much more closely resembles what we now associate him with, though the box art of Super Mario Bros. 3 did indeed display that look as well. Then Super Mario 64, his first ever 3D outing, was what really cemented his look, and since then, in all the sequels and the many spin-offs and offshoots he's appeared in, his visual design has mostly stuck to the same fundamentals, right up until his more recent outings in the likes of Super Mario Odyssey and Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Of course, we've seen greater detail being added to that design as technology has progressed, which has allowed developers to really breathe life into the character's look. Chris Redfield, Resident Evil. Though Leon S. Kennedy, whose visual evolution we also spoke of in a previous feature, is probably the more popular Resident Evil protagonist, Chris Redfield is perhaps even more important to the larger narrative events that have shaped the series' story, not only because he was there at the very beginning, but also because he's been directly involved in some of the series' most crucial narrative developments, thanks in large part to his enmity with the one and only Albert Wesker. That said, if you were to look at how much he's changed throughout the series' long and winding history, you'd almost think he was a different character each time. The most basic of basics have stuck around, but then again, a man with a square jaw, brown hair, and bulging muscles isn't exactly a description that stands out. And outside of these fundamentals, Capcom has taken a lot of liberties with Chris's design. In Resident Evil 1 and its remake, he looked like a regular Joe, but when he came back in Resident Evil 5, he was ridiculously ripped and roided out, to the point where he could punch massive boulders with nary a care in the world. That look carried over pretty much as it is, with some changes here and there, to Resident Evil 6. But then came Resident Evil 7, which once again introduced us to a Chris who looks completely different. Ironically enough, RE7's Chris resembles the character's design from RE1 a lot more closely than most Resident Evil games have done in years. So at least it's good to see Capcom truly going back to their roots in every way possible with 2017's first-person soft reboot of the franchise. Sonic the Hedgehog. No, we're not talking about the movie, though we could probably write a whole essay about his well-publicized visual overhaul for his debut on the silver screen. Unlike the movie, Sega pretty much nailed the blue Super Speedy Hedgehog's look on their very first attempt. Since the days of Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis in 1991 to some of his more recent appearances in games like Sonic Mania and Sonic Forces, the iconic mascot's design has remained largely the same. He sports a few key visual indicators that make him instantly recognizable, more so than most video game characters. His spiky hair, his massive eyes, his white gloves, his red shoes, and of course his blue color are all things that we've always associated with Sonic. And these are things that Sega have kept intact for the character throughout the ages. There have been some modifications here and there, sure. For instance, Sonic 3D Blast showed him with a fuller belly and stick-thin arms, while games such as the 2006 reboot, we're sorry we have to mention it, and some that followed it, such such as Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Colors saw his blue spikes getting much longer and pretty much looking like waist-length hair. By and large, though, his design has remained the same, minus the flourishes and details Sega have kept on adding as time has gone on, much like what Nintendo have done with Mario. Samus Aran, Metroid. Mario isn't the only Nintendo icon we're gonna speak of here. When Super Mario and The Legend of Zelda were taking the world by storm back in the 80s, Metroid was doing much of the same to round off what many now look at as the Japanese giant's trio of most massive, beloved, and hugely respected properties. And much like the other two, one character has remained synonymous with Metroid for as long as the series has been around: the spacefaring bounty hunter Samus Aran. Though her power suit has by and large always stuck to the same larger beats, the suit's color is where the variations have come in over the years. Most Metroid titles have seen her donning a suit with a golden hue, but in Metroid Fusion, in which she wore an altered fusion suit instead of a regular power suit for reasons we won't spoil, she looked quite different. Not only was the suit bulkier, it also had small blades on her left arm, and instead of the usual color was dominated by hues of purple and yellow. There was also Metroid 2, in which her power suit was white and gray, but that was due to the Game Boy's limited capabilities. Zero Suit Samus, which means Samus outside of her armor as the name implies, has also appeared in games time and time again. Appearances in Smash Bros. And Metroid Other M would see her donning a complete form-fitting suit. Crash Bandicoot. We started this feature speaking about a platforming icon of the video games industry with Mario, before then speaking about another one with Sonic. So let's end it with another, with Crash Bandicoot. And much like those two, Crash has not really changed much from a visual perspective over the years, even though the series bearing his name has changed and changed back time and again. His first appearance in the Naughty Dog-developed 1996 game established a design that other developers would stick to pretty closely for years to come. The bipedal anthropomorph wore shoes, had big eyes, bushy eyebrows, pointy ears, and blue pants. And none of that has changed, ever. Have there been some minor variations to other features here and there? Sure. For instance, for a short spell following 2007's Crash of the Titans, he had tattoos going up his arms. But that's about it. 2017's Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy and 2019's Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled are basically the definitive visual renditions of the character, because not only do they stick closely to his original design from the PS1 days, they're also backed up by technically impressive visuals that lend a lot of attention to detail as well. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, please hit the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to switch on the notifications bell icon next to it. That way you'll never miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.